All right, buckle up, folks. This one's a little dark, but trust me, it's going to be an interesting ride. We're talking about the last public beheading in France. Yeah, you heard that right, public beheading. I know what you're thinking. Didn't we leave this stuff back in the 18th century? Well, apparently not. France wasn't quite done with it until 1939. And let me tell you, the story behind France's last public beheading is anything but ordinary. Now, before you start thinking, wait, beheading? In 1939? This sounds like something out of a medieval horror movie. Let's rewind. Public executions, especially beheadings, had a long tradition in France, thanks to, the French Revolution and their passion for equality and liberty. The guillotine became their tool of choice, and it was like the iPhone of execution methods. Everyone wanted one. The French really loved their guillotine. But by the 20th century, most countries had moved on to more civilized ways of handling crime, except for France. So here's the thing. France wasn't exactly a fan of moving forward. Public beheadings, still a thing in the 30s. And the last public execution, well, that went down in 1939. So imagine this. You're walking down a street in Paris, just minding your own business, when out of nowhere, boom, you see a giant crowd. The guillotine's set up, and the atmosphere's about as cheery as a funeral. And the reason why? The man getting beheaded, his name was Eugen Weidmann. Now, Eugène wasn't exactly a saint. He was a German-born serial killer, and his crimes? Well, they weren't exactly the stuff of fairy tales. In fact, his crime spree was so horrific, it left the public shaken. He and his accomplices were responsible for a series of robberies, kidnappings, and murders across France. But here's the kicker. Weidmann didn't just kill people in the usual stabby way. Oh no, he took it to the next level. He was known for torturing his victims. That's right, this guy was a serious piece of work. Okay, so we've got the bad guy, and now we've got the stage set for the grand finale. The date? June 17, 1939. The place? The Vincennes military prison, just outside Paris. And let me tell you, this was not your average execution. The whole thing was a media circus with hundreds of people gathered to watch. The atmosphere? Not exactly somber, more like a twisted show and tell. And to make it even more absurd, this wasn't just any old beheading. This was public, which meant anyone could come and watch. Kind of like going to a concert, but instead of a band, you get a guy losing his head. Yay, family fun day, right? Nothing says good times like a beheading in broad daylight. But here's the twist. France was trying to modernize and move away from public executions. They were like, all right, we're getting pretty behind in the execution game. Everyone else has moved on to less public ways of dealing with criminals. The French government was actually planning to stop public executions after this one. And Eugen Weidmann's case just so happened to be the final act. Talk about going out with a bang, huh? So, Eugène gets strapped in, and the crowd watches in anticipation. And this wasn't a quick, dramatic, and now we're done moment. Oh no, this was a bit of a show. As the guillotine came down, Weidmann's head, well, let's just say it didn't quite land where people expected. The way it happened caused an uproar. It was so graphic that the French authorities got a little freaked out about the whole thing. It was like, okay guys, maybe we should rethink this whole public spectacle thing. It's not very classy. So Eugen Weidmann became the last person in France to lose their head publicly. And after that, the guillotine was still used for executions, but they decided to take it behind closed doors. No more audiences, no more crowds cheering. France decided to pull the plug on the whole public execution tradition. And while it's hard to argue that Weidmann's crime spree wasn't horrific, it's also tough to justify making an entire show out of someone's death. Public executions went out with a bang in 1939, and honestly, it was probably for the best. So the moral of the story? If you're going to commit horrific crimes, try not to do them in a way that'll make history books. You never know when your death might be the grand finale of a public spectacle. And remember, sometimes the most shocking things aren't always the ones we see in the headlines. Sometimes it's just about how we choose to watch. All right, that's it for today's episode. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that'll make you think, what the heck did I just watch? See you next time.